Okay, welcome. This is the Series of Opinions podcast, episode number 5, Let the Women Do the Work. We are 3 women talking about the best and worst of media and our opinions concerning them. I'm Faith.
I'm Moira.
I'm KJ.
And we are talking about the strongest women, well, some strong women, from media this week. Just to start us off, do we have any recommendations this week? What are we loving? Any disclaimers?
I just started listening to the Let's Go to Court podcast, and I'm listening to the early episodes so far, but it's really good. Big fan so far.
Okay. I'm just adding that.
They kind of remind me of Karen and Georgia from My Favorite Murderer, but a little bit more focused.
Really?
Yeah, and they just talk about
good.
interesting court cases.
Yeah, that's a good vibe. Yeah, I love that.
It's really fun. I really like it so far. The last episode that I listened to, they talked about Anna Nicole Smith and some guy from the KKK, and it was really good.
Okay,
I think it was episode 2 or 3. It was really early in their backlog.
Well, I just wanted to credit True Crime Obsessed / Jillian Pensavali for the title of this episode.
Oh,
Let
yes.
the women do the work. This is something they always say when it's, clearly women that should be doing a lot of the work as far as criminals and investigation and stuff. Sometimes they could just do better.
It wouldn't
just say
be an episode of this podcast if we didn't credit True Crime Obsessed.
Yeah, in some way at some point. So now we're just again just getting it right off the bat, just right at the top.
Yeah. But yeah, since they did directly influence the title of this week's episode.
Yes, just wanted to credit them there. Moira, anything you've been loving this week?
No, but I'm going to talk about Supergirl this week, and you guys should watch Supergirl because it's one of the best shows that I've ever watched.
It's definitely on my list.
And then I just wanted to quickly also recommend to you guys, I don't know, have you guys listened to the Criminal podcast?
No, I haven't.
She's amazing, and her voice is amazing, and she has a new podcast called Phoebe Reads a Mystery, and she takes a mystery book. The first one that I'm listening to right now is an Agatha Christie book, and she does 1 chapter a day until she gets through the whole book. There's no ads, just her amazing voice. It's great. So soothing. I almost fell asleep last night when I was working, late, because her voice is amazing, and, mystery books and no ads. It's wonderful. You guys should really, really try it.
Those sound really good. I feel like Criminal by Phoebe Judge has been recommended on a few podcasts that I've listened to, and I just haven't gotten to it. I'll have to actually add that to my list.
It's one of the first... it started off kind of more true crime, but now it's kind of just, crazy stories. But it's one of the first, quote-unquote true crime podcasts I ever listened to besides Serial. So I've loved it for a long time.
I don't mind when true crime podcasts go a little bit more into just crazy wild stories that have happened to people.
Totally.
That's fine with me. That's a thing I can roll with.
Yeah, and Phoebe Judge's voice, I just can't get enough. It's so great. I love her.
Incredible.
Okay, so again, this week we are talking about strong, badass women. This episode we each picked one or a few of our favorite strong women right now. We will break down who they are, why we love them, what makes them so fierce, and we definitely want to make more of these, so let us know on all of our socials, which I'll say at the end, who your favorite strong, baddest ladies are, and we can discuss. Moira, do you want to start us off?
For sure. So, like I said, I've chosen a character from Supergirl. I'm discussing Alex Danvers, who is Supergirl's sister in the series. And just a note before I start, at this point, I've only seen the first 4 seasons of Supergirl. I've not seen the 5th season that just aired on TV last year because I didn't have cable this year, so it's very difficult to watch actual TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not seen the 5th season that is already aired. Just the first 4 is what I'm going to be discussing.
So no one spoil it for Moira.
Yeah. I watched parts of it in clips because I am a weirdo and like spoilers and will watch things after that.
Yes.
But good thing on a podcast where we just spoil everything for you.
Yeah, literally.
Exactly. So Alex Danvers is a bioengineer and works for the DEO, which is the Department of Extra Normal Operations. I'm just going to call it DEO for the rest of this because that's a lot. She is a sister to Kara Danvers, who is Supergirl. And she is a doctor, a soldier, and in later seasons becomes the youngest DEO director ever.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah. So at the beginning of the series, we get to meet her as a DEO operative agent, and she is currently hiding that fact from her sister, who is also hiding her powers and has not become Supergirl yet. And in the first episode, we watch Alex get into a almost plane crash that is sabotaged. And then as it's crashing, Kara reveals her powers to save the plane. At the end of this, after she saved it, we see Alex get very mad about this and how dare you save me, just let me die. Because, protective older sister things. Why would you save me? Risk yourself. And then for the rest of season 1, we get to see her train Supergirl how to fight and how to hold her own and not just rely on her superpowers, but be able to fight without superpowers.
I know that look. You think that you're smarter than me, that you're stronger than me, which is fine. I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion. It'll change in time, though, because after days, weeks, months in here, you're gonna feel like I peeled your skin off and saw everything underneath.
And another thing that was really cool is in superhero shows for the series, they mostly have characters that they fight each week, and then they have a season's big bad who they fight throughout the season. And this the first season, Alex is the one who defeats the big bad, and instead of Supergirl, which I think was really cool.
That is very interesting choice to make.
Yeah. It's also Kara's aunt from Krypton, who things and is bad. So we also get to see Alex and Kara work through the effects of killing a family member and that whole experience.
Wow.
Which was
it's pretty rough.
Yeah. Because even though she was fighting her and trying to defeat her all season, it's still her family and it still has that connection. And we got to see them work through that and find out how they deal with that and eventually make up. And in season 2, we get to see Alex work to understand her sexuality. She meets Maggie Sawyer, who is a police officer, and it helps Alex figure out her feelings that she's had for her whole life, and she comes out as lesbian to the rest of her family because of this relationship and connection she's made, which I think is really great.
Yeah, I love representation. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was wonderful. At the end of the season, Alex and Maggie get engaged as well, which was wonderful. Yeah. I was looking through websites, looking to see what I'm forgetting, and it mentioned how in season 2 episode 19 Alex gets kidnapped, which somehow I forgot, but yeah, Alex gets kidnapped, and it's basically her just being incredible for the entire episode. It's Maggie and Kara working together to save her, but Alex is trapped in this box and she's helping them figure out where she is and who is taking her captive while she's in this box that helps them. She's completely useless basically, but she finds a way to be helpful. And
wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
And she's a soldier, so she's doing this. I saw this thing that she did with her pants where she took them off and used them as a flotation device because the thing started filling up with water. And
wow.
She did all these really cool things and just watch that one episode. Yeah. I'm that actually sounds like it looks like it would work actually, and I'm intrigued. Yeah, and that was very cool. I had to rewatch it last night because I'm I don't even remember this. And then I started watching the episode and I'm this is great. And then season 3, Alex is getting prepared to marry Maggie. And then they have a wonderful discussion about how Alex wants kids in the future and Maggie does not. Which, unfortunately, yeah, it unfortunately leads to them ending their relationship, which is so sad. But also, it brings Alex to a concept and idea of discussing the possibility of adopting a child in the future for herself, which is great. And at the end of season 3, we get to see her promoted to the director of the DEO, which is wonderful. And then in season 4, we get to see her be a director and do all this fun stuff. At the peak and wave of the anti-extraterrestrial bigotry, so basically they created our world right now in real time.
Yeah.
And yeah, recommend season 4. It's incredible. They did a really good job. And then one of the most heart-wrenching things that I've ever seen is Alex gets another character, John Jones, to wipe her memory of the fact that Supergirl is her sister because she is terrified of the fact that she's going to be tortured to find out like who the identity of Supergirl is. So she gets herself mind wiped and doesn't know for the entire season. We have to watch Alex and Kara not know that like a huge part of Kara's identity and all that, and it's awful. But at the end of the season, she like figures it out, and we get to see that wonderful wonderfulness and them defeat the big bad. And we also get to see the beginning of her relationship with Kelly Olsen, which I have read in season 5 actually becomes a thing. I'm so excited. And I've also seen the crossover that happens in season 5 because I watched The Flash all the way through, so I just skipped some and watched that episode. And one of the things that The Flash says about Alex was, oh, she's a badass in every universe. And I'm like, yes, she is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's all of the amazingness that I have about Alex Danvers so far.
Yeah, that really had it all.
Amazing.
We had women representing the LGBTQ plus community. You had women in power. You had women making sacrifices, being just total badasses. That really covered it. Alex Danvers sounds awesome.
Yeah. Also, I almost forgot because Faith doesn't know this, but Alex Danvers is played by Chyler Lee, Lexi from Grey's Anatomy.
I just opened a new tab to Google that because I'm like, I think there's someone that she plays. I'm like, is that who?
Yes, that's her.
So,
that's amazing.
I was watching season
Lexi
4 of...
So,
honestly, I could have done her as well.
Uh-huh.
I was watching season 4 of Supergirl at the same time I was watching season 6 of Grey's Anatomy, and I just switched back and forth and watched Chyler Lee be awesome in everything.
Oh
that's
my
like
god.
Peak Lexi is season 6.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah,
this is great.
It's like literally like the midway.
She's one of my all-time favorites.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like she's only on the show for 4 seasons, and that's exactly midway through.
Yeah.
And like
amazing. Oh, one of my all-time favorite Grey's characters. So great. But yeah, that was great, Moira.
Yeah.
So next is me. I am doing Nairobi of Money Heist. I'm so obsessed with her. Like, I can't stop talking about her. Like, she was so amazing. So her real name, she was born as Agata Jimenez. So sorry for any Spanish listeners. I'm really sorry. I won't say that again. She's 33 years old and an absolute boss. She's played by Alba Flores. Her occupation, she's a former drug dealer, currently a quality control manager for the team of robbers. She's born into poverty and has a rough home life, resulting in her learning to counterfeit money at age 13. She becomes pregnant as a teenager and is abandoned by her boyfriend to raise her son alone. She becomes a drug dealer to feed her drug addiction, and her son Axel is taken away after she leaves him alone to go on a drug run. Recruited by the Professor, which is if you've never seen Money Heist, which I know you guys haven't.
No.
But the whole kind of point of the show is this guy named the Professor recruits these, I think I have it, 7, there's 8 total people of different skill sets in order to conduct a heist on the Royal Mint of Spain. And so she is one of these, and she ends up being the quality control manager because she knows how to counterfeit money.
I can't believe I haven't watched this show. Everything you just said is things that I like. I love heist.
You have to. And I was really purposeful during this to try to put minimal spoilers because it is so important to me that you guys watch this. It's so good.
I'll watch it even if you spoil this whole thing.
And get the whole yes, and get the whole experience. Where am I at?
Sorry.
Okay, so the professor gives rules for them to not use their real names, which is when she becomes Nairobi, because everyone picks a city name for their identity and for their alias. So she becomes Nairobi, which is why we don't know much more than what I just kind of did a rundown of about her before the heist. So Nairobi is empathetic and perceptive. She notices little changes in people and learns people's behaviors quickly. She's able to pick up different dynamics because they also take hostages. They are really fair to them. They feed them and give them medication and everything. But as a protection against the police, they do take hostages during this heist. And so she's able to pick up on the hostages' behaviors and the dynamics within them. And she protects a lot of the female hostages during this time because she can notice kind of what's going on. She motivates others, making her a natural leader, and she keeps a lot of the calm during the heist. She comforts and motivates the hostages in many of the darkest times. The hostages grow to love and respect her during the heist. And the the man who was in charge of making the money in the Royal Mint of Spain, he's also a hostage, and Nairobi works with him in order to make all this money, which is why they're doing this heist, is to make all this money that they can take. And so he even says that she's one of the best bosses that he's ever had because of how great she treats, especially him. And like they have this great friendship. It's really great.
That's really interesting.
It's great. I love her. Like there are obviously like always going to be a couple of the robbers that are like, there's some like sexist guys in this show, but she's just such a counterbalance to that and keeps them in check as best as she can.
I mean, it's a hostage situation, so, like, even if you're, like, a super humane hostage taker, like, you still took hostages. Like, there's gonna be some things that are gonna go badly.
Yeah, whenever I was writing this, I'm like, she was really great. Like, she did take hostages and she is a robber, but she's still really great.
She's robbing a mint, but...
Yes. But besides that...
You can still be a strong female woman.
Yeah.
And be a criminal. It doesn't have to be a one or the other.
Exactly.
Yes.
In fact, I think you have to be a stronger woman, really, to make it in a man's world as a criminal.
Yes, exactly. Which they touch on a lot in Money Heist, is that there's only 2 women in the team of 8 robbers, and then the professor is also a man. So her, Nairobi, and the other female have to really hold their own. She's a feminist icon. She stands up for women and herself, again, against the sexist male leaders within the show, whether it's, the man put in charge of the heist in the bank, because the professor stays out and monitors the police and keeps in contact with them as kind of their man on the outside. So, yeah, she stands up against the sexist male leaders and knows her own value and makes it totally known. So, a few awesome moments. When the man in charge gets off course and starts breaking the rules that the professor laid out for them, she sneaks up behind him, hits him over the head, and looks right into the camera and announces, "Let the matriarchy begin."
The matriarchy begins now.
Like, so, I rewatched so many clips.
Love it.
for this episode. She's so iconic. Another quote by her. Quote, "You know what else is scary? Walking home alone at night. But us women keep doing it. Take fear by the hand and keep living, because you have to, gentlemen. You have to live until the end." Unquote.
That's a good quote.
I love it.
Isn't it? Right? So again, surrounded by men, a dictator asshole in charge, she is told to keep her mouth shut and only open it to thank him. She then gets into this fight with him about love, and he thinks that love is only sex, and it's a whole thing. But it ends up in this quote: "The only miserable one in this whole story is you, with your speech about love. That's because you're too coward to admit the truth." Unquote. And then I just wanted to say also, in this, I'm just going to say blank where a character's name is, because it's really important to me that you guys watch this, and I'm not spoiling this for you. So, quote, "You don't love anyone. Of course you don't, darling. You don't have the balls for it. To love, you need courage. I have courage. Look, blank. I love you. I love you so much that I would have a family with you. See, this is bravery. I feel it and I say it. And that you don't know how to do." Unquote.
Oh, I love that. That feels
right.
Yeah,
She's
need to
so
watch this
iconic.
immediately.
Oh my god, she's so great. I've been dying because you guys I can't gush about her with you. Oh, it's so great.
Now I'm slightly disappointed I'm going out to the woods this weekend.
Right? In conclusion, Nairobi is strong, fearless, but also afraid. Even in her darkest moments, she motivates those around her, and everyone can't help but love her. She's empathetic and is so committed to love and fun because of the darkness that she's faced. She is, in her own words, the absolute fucking boss.
Oh, love it.
Right? Oh my
I'm
god, I love her so much. So that's all I have about Nairobi. She's friggin' amazing.
Yeah, that was amazing as well.
Yeah.
The only thing I just want to say is that we're super clear we don't condone bank robbery or other robbery.
Yes,
we love this
love her so much.
badassery.
Yes, I love her with my whole heart because this is a fictional show. And,
See,
and the show...
This week on the Obsessed With Disappeared, I think it was the Facebook page, but it might have been the Instagram, where Patrick really just wanted Ellen to say that they don't condone murder. Like, he just had to say it out loud. Like,
just say it. Yeah. Just make it clear.
Just so we're clear. And I'm like, oh, we have to do that. We have to do that here with Heist.
Yes.
Like, Moira and I are very excited now to watch this show. You've been excited for us to watch the show.
Yes.
We're excited now to have heard all of this, but
yes.
You should not rob anybody.
Yeah, don't rob things. Don't be a criminal. Don't take hostages.
Yeah, definitely don't take hostages. Those poor people weren't doing anything wrong.
No, exactly. And even though she is really great to them, there are people that are in charge that aren't as great to them. So, yeah, don't rob things.
I just gave her a quick Goog, and like she's gorgeous.
Right? Oh my god, she's so gorgeous.
So beautiful.
Just like we also have a doc.
So much.
Right? She has such beautiful braids and stuff. We have another doc currently of Instagram posts, and we want to do like Strong Woman of the Week or Hot Person of the Week, kind of maybe both, either. But she is, I put her in there for the Hot Person of the Week. And of course, Strong Woman as well.
Yeah, of course.
She's so great. KJ, would you like to keep us rolling?
Yes. Okay, so I'm taking up a bit of a notch here because I'm going to do 3 women. Because I'm talking about the women with bones, and I felt wrong to separate them. They work so closely. They have very collaborative partnerships. They work in a co-ed work environment where there's actually a pretty even mix of men to women. But all the women are like particularly amazing. Mm-hmm. And it just felt wrong to talk about why.
Yeah, they're all pretty interconnected.
Yeah,
for sure.
So Bones is like one of my favorite shows. Wikipedia classifies it as an American crime procedural comedy drama, which is a whole bunch of words, but honestly they all apply.
True.
So it mostly follows Dr. Temperance Brennan, who works at the Medical Legal Lab at the Jeffersonian Institute, and she works in close partnership with FBI's Special Agent Celie Booth. So they have a really close partnership with Dr. Brennan's team of scientists, or squints, at the Jeffersonian to solve murders. And part of the deal is that he takes her out in the field with him as a civilian, and in exchange, their lab helps solve the murders. And like I said, like there's a pretty even mix of men and women, and like while Bones and Booth like do most of the work of putting the pieces together, everyone at the lab has a pretty equal opportunity to identify and explain what individual pieces of the puzzle are and why they matter to the overall puzzle.
Okay.
All right, I'm no coroner, but I'm saying the cause of death was a humongous explosion.
The coroner concurs.
Halcyon density of the victim's femur suggests mid-40s.
I'm gonna start a facial reconstruction. Can I borrow the skull before you pull the gunk off of it?
Oh, here's some nose to go with.
Yummy.
So I'll start with Bones, because, you know, she's the title character. She's a forensic anthropologist, so in addition to her work in the field, she works with bones and what different markers and injuries tell her about the victim's life and their death. She's considered to be the best forensic anthropologist in the country and is renowned worldwide for her work and her expertise. She travels all over the world to do classes and go to, like, if there's, like, a mass grave from some, like, war or something that they find, then, like, she goes and, like, identifies bodies there, and, like, she works with bones from, like, thousands of years ago. She's, like, she's really respected in her field. It's never officially diagnosed on the show, but Brennan's very logical way of thinking, her difficulties in social situations, and focused interest in her work are very characteristic of Asperger's autism.
Okay.
And the showrunner did confirm that a lot of her character is based on someone that he knows with autism. So like, she's never officially diagnosed, but it is like a little bit of potential representation there.
Right.
There's been a lot of people in the online community that have said that like they have autism, and like Dr. Brennan is like one of the few characters on TV that they like really relate to. Like her behaviors and stuff like that are really, really characteristic of that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
She's really extremely smart and has an amazing ability to put clues together and, like, an unconscious ability to meet people whose abilities are very different and, like, complementary to her own. So, like, she doesn't excel very well in, like, social situations. She doesn't really understand them. But, like, she seems to have a knack to, like, befriending people who are good at social situations. Maybe it's because you need to be good at social situations to, like, stand her particular personality. but she just seems to be really good at it. So, Brennan's parents unexpectedly abandoned her and her older brother, Russ, at the ages of 15 and 18. Brennan was put into foster care for a period of time until she became an adult, and she definitely lived in some abusive situations in the foster system. As an adult, she had learned that her parents were career criminals and assumed new identities when she was a baby, and that shortly after leaving the children, her mother was murdered by a former co-conspirator who had found them in their new lives.
Wow.
Yeah, so Temperance Brennan isn't even her actual name, because her parents changed her name when she was a baby when they assumed new identities. Her actual name was Joy Keenan, so, like, that took a lot for her to deal with.
Dang.
As well. Like, she had this whole thing where, like, even her name wasn't real.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
That's insane.
She does eventually repair her damaged relationships with her brother and her father, and, like, comes to terms with the fact that the decisions her family made were in effort to protect her.
Right.
But it's definitely hard. It's a hard thing to come to terms with because, like, her parents just left with no explanation, and then her brother couldn't take care of her, so she went into foster care. So she was really mad at him for a long time about that.
Yeah.
And then she didn't know what happened to her parents or where they were. You know, she had a long journey to come back from that, and it's had a huge impact as well on her ability to connect with people and be trusting with people.
Mm-hmm.
So she's initially very happy living a solitary lifestyle, though she does have a fairly active social life on, like, a sexual level. She's not very interested in, like, a long-term romance, but she does well with finding partners for, like, limited amounts of time. She's got some pretty serious abandonment issues and difficulty socializing, so she's happy being single and child-free. Around season 4, she changes her mind about the desire to have children, and she asks her work partner, Booth, to donate his sperm so she can conceive through artificial insemination, which everybody thinks is crazy except for her, because she doesn't understand how that might be complicated socially. And it doesn't end up happening because of some different circumstances that come up around that same time. But at the end of season 6, her and Booth begin a romantic relationship, and they conceive a daughter, Christine. And Bones appears to be a really excellent mother, not just to her daughter, but Booth has a son, Parker, from his previous relationship that she's quite close with. And then later they have another child, Hank. And she loves her work and shares that love with her children, even at, like, a very young age. I think Christine is, like, 3 or 4 and knows a lot about Bones. So, like, despite the fact that her work involves dead people, like, her just being interested in teaching her children, like, instills an appreciation for learning and science in the children from a young age, which is important.
Songs shouldn't be dumbed down for children, Booth. Okay. 1, 2, 3. The tibia, fibula, femur, and patella. If the shoe fits your metatarsals, then you might be Cinderella. So get off your sacrum, get off your coccyx, wave your triquetrum, and capitate in the air. Shake your cuneiform and navicular like you just don't care.
Wow, you guys can rap.
Now it's your turn, Daddy.
She's very anti the institution of marriage, despite the fact that Booth believes in marriage, which is a little ironic since he has 2 children out of wedlock. In season 8, Bones proposes to Booth with a package of beef jerky.
Oh,
She's vegetarian, so that beef jerky was a real big step. And
yeah.
That initial proposal is not followed through on, but then they get engaged again, and they do get married in season 9, and then they have their second child in season 10 together. And so Bones also teaches classes in forensic anthropology. We're not really sure. They never really say where she teaches these classes, but she does regularly teach classes, and she shapes up-and-coming forensic anthropologists. She accepts a few of the top of the class to work with her and the team at the Jeffersonian. And it's shown she really cares that they learn well from her and cares about them as people as well. And, you know, she doesn't care about a lot of people, so it's nice that she takes these people under her wing, and she does genuinely care what happens to them, even though she pretends that she doesn't care. Overall, she's like a strong woman who highly values her work and her intelligence. She does fear dependence on others just because of some things that has happened to her, but she's capable of being vulnerable with people that she truly trusts. She sets strong examples as a working parent for her child and her children and is heavily involved in their lives. She's also a best-selling author of crime novels in her free time. So truly she's just a busy woman who isn't afraid to give us serial killers an attitude while serving up some justice.
Yeah, love that. That's a great sentence right there.
Honestly.
The next person I'm going to talk about is Dr. Camille Saroyan. Who is the head of the lab starting in season 2. So she's officially in charge of making decisions about who gets hired at the lab and working closely with the prosecution about how they're going to present the case and the evidence. She's also a forensic pathologist who helps determine cause of death. So she deals with the tissue and bodily fluids and flesh portions of the investigation. So she can see if there's been toxins or other injuries. And then because of that, she's very helpful. But before working at the Jeffersonian, she was a coroner in New York and a police officer for about 10 years before that as well. We don't know exactly what the timeline is there, but she often has some like anecdotal evidence insight to provide on possible causes of death. And the lab truly cannot function smoothly without her. Cam loves every single one of her coworkers, but often has to pretend not to. She's very careful that her friends remember that in the lab she is the final say, she's the boss. She's a strong leader who brings out everyone's strengths to solve cases, but she's not afraid to admit when she's made a mistake or gone about something the wrong way. She's really quick to defend her team to outsiders when she believes that her team is right. And she's in charge of making sure that the team follows the rules and does things by the book. She puts her foot down on that when it's absolutely necessary, which it sometimes is, because sometimes the lab just wants to do things to get the bad guy with not caring that they have to go to court and follow court procedures. So in season 4, one of Cam's ex-boyfriends, her ex-fiance, is murdered, and she ends up adopting his teenage daughter, Michelle. Cam had previously expressed that she was happy without having kids, and then we learn that a lot of that is because of how much she missed Michelle when her relationship with Michelle's father ended, because she had raised Michelle for about 2 years when she was really young. So Cam's time during Michelle's formative years was pretty limited to like just those 2 years, which sometimes causes strain on their relationship now. And Cam's very protective of Michelle, but overall they have a really great relationship. They talk things through when they disagree. And Michelle is so inspired by Cam that she applies to Quantico for FBI training in the final season to follow in her footsteps in law enforcement. Cam also falls in love over the course of the show, and in the penultimate episode of the show, she marries her now husband, Aristu Visiri, one of Dr. Brennan's former squinterns. And then they reveal in the series finale that they've adopted 3 more children, Tyler, Isaiah, and Jordan. And then, the adoption just worked so good. They were, the 3 children they adopt, their biological brothers, so they, adopted all of them so that they wouldn't be separated.
Oh, I love
amazing.
that.
Which is really nice. And, she did such a good job raising Michelle. that it just, it's really sweet. In addition to being such a strong female character, Cam's also a woman of color, as is her adoptive daughter, Michelle. It's not brought up too often in the show, but there's an episode in season 6 where the remains of a slave ship is brought up, and Cam is somewhat forced to face her feelings about the horrible things that her somewhat recent ancestors were forced to survive through slavery. So it's not brought up super often that she's a woman of color, but she is, and I think that's important as well, to see a woman of color in the position of power.
Yeah, totally.
Cam does sometimes concede that Brennan is really the one running the lab, but it's definitely Cam. If Dr. Brennan was running the lab would not work.
Yeah.
In the final episode, when Cam reveals to everyone that they're going to go pick up these 3 new sons, they tell Dr. Brennan and everyone that they're going to let Hodgins run the lab instead of Dr. Brennan. Everyone assumes it's going to be Dr. Brennan, and she's like, yeah, no, Dr. Brennan is too busy doing everything else. I'm going to move on to one of the most interesting women on the show, which is Angela Pearly Gates Montenegro. She's the daughter of a Texan rock star who's a fictionalized version of ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, who plays himself as a recurring guest role. He plays a fictionalized version of himself, which is amazing. And we don't know anything really about Angela's mother at all. She's never really mentioned, but she has a pretty close relationship with her father, even though they don't often get to spend a lot of time together. In season 5, we find out that Angela changed her name when she became an adult because she was so embarrassed by her name, and not even her best friend or her husband know her birth name for most of the series, and I'm about to spoil it for everybody here. Because we don't learn Angela's birth name until season 10. But what we do, growing up with this name alone would have been enough to make her into a strong woman. Her full name from birth is Pookie Noodlin Pearly Gates Gibbons.
That's her legal name?
That's her legal name that she that she was born with and lived with until she was 18.
God.
Oh no.
There's some speculation on where this name came from. So Pearly Gates, Miss Pearly Gates is the name of Billy Gibbons' guitar, his famous guitar. So that's where her middle name comes from. She kept that middle name because it's your middle name. And then Noodlin is when you are just messing around on a guitar. And then Pookie is the name of Garfield's teddy bear.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Goodness.
He wanted to name Angela's child when she had her first child, and the name he proposed was Staccato Mamba.
Oh my god.
They did not name their child Staccato Mamba.
That's a crime.
Yeah.
Angela's husband put his foot down a little bit. So she changed her name to Angela Montenegro when she turned 18 after the name came to her in a dream. Angela is basically the only one other than Booth who doesn't have or isn't in the process of getting a doctorate in the whole show. Of all the main characters, it's just Angela and then people that work at the FBI who aren't doctors or trying to become doctors. She's an artist and a longtime best friend of Dr. Brennan, who invites her to do freelance facial reconstructions for the Jeffersonian. And then, unlike everyone else, Angela does not like murder or bodies and frequently threatens that as soon as she saves enough money that she'll be going to France to be an artist because she doesn't like the work that they do. Angela becomes an integral part of the team, not just doing facial reconstructions, but she's also very skilled with computers. So she invents her own patented software called the Angelator, and it's later replaced with the Angelatron, which allows them to do a variety of otherwise impossible computer things that make the cases solvable in the 45-minute time constraints of television.
Yes, I'm seeing quite a few connections between this show and CSI.
Mm-hmm. But this one, there's an actual explanation. It's because Angela has invented the Angelatron, and the Angelatron is amazing.
I love it.
So Angela's facial reconstructions are often seen as the most human element of the work that they do. She helps Brennan give victims back their names and identities because they mostly work with bodies that are too damaged or too decomposed to do IDs on.
Right.
That's the main work that they do. They pretty much only get called to scenes where the bodies are in really rough shape. So the facial reconstruction is really important and helpful. So she comes from an arts and humanities background, and her brain works entirely differently way than the rest of the squints who operate mainly with a logic and science background. So it allows her to occasionally solve problems that the rest of the team are struggling with, and she's Dr. Brennan's best friend. So she often helps Brennan navigate social norms and situations, and she needs the help. So she's also Chinese American, and like while she's extremely smart in like her own way, she twists that stereotype about Asian Americans being like academics by being intelligent in like a more humanity and arts based way. She's a really talented artist and photographer. She's also bisexual, which is really fun. She has a relationship with a girl named Roxy in art school, and then they reconnect for a while in season 4 before they ultimately decide to separate. She also has an on and off relationship with her coworker, entomologist Dr. Jack Hodgins, and she rejects his proposal twice before proposing to him. Their wedding is interrupted when it's discovered that Angela was technically married on a vacation to Fiji. She's a little bit of a spur of the moment kind of gal.
Yeah.
So she tracks down her husband and gets divorced in season 4. But her and Hodgins still break up because he doesn't trust her to stay faithful to him. But then they later get arrested together in season 5, and their time in the local jail reminds them how much they care for one another, and they get married on the spot because, you know, spur of the moment.
Because why not?
And that's I think the big moment where we really realize that Angela's name is embarrassing because she whispers it to the guy performing the marriage, the justice of the peace or whatever. And he doesn't say it out loud. He uses Angela. She just whispers it to him so that their marriage will be more official. So they move to France for a while so Angela can pursue her dream of studying art there, but then return to DC when Angela becomes pregnant with their first child. So while Angela's pregnant, they find out that there's a 25% chance that their child is going to be born with a congenital condition that will cause blindness. So they're really grateful to learn that their son, Michael Staccato Vincent Hodgins, was healthy, and they call him Michael Vincent as his like most commonly used first name, which I love. Like they just like Michael Vincent did this today, and Michael Vincent did that today. Like his name, his first name is Michael Vincent, which is so cute. She's another working mom, and she occasionally sneaks her son out of daycare, even though it's against the rules, and she brings him to the lab. He's only a few months older than Booth and Bones' daughter, so they play together a lot, and they're godparents to each other's children, so like they really lean into each other for support in parenting and with their relationships as working moms with their husbands, and that's really important. And then Hodgins is also paralyzed after an explosion at a crime scene during season 11, which puts a huge strain on their relationship. But they eventually learn to cope with the changes and get Hodgins to like the right specialists and come through as a really strong partnership. And like a huge part of that is Angela. Like Angela really bears the brunt of his like issues with like dealing with it. He really has a hard time coping. And Angela really comes through and puts up with a lot of shit she should not have had to put up with. But they eventually come out the other side. Angela wins a very prestigious MacArthur Foundation Genius Grant in season 12. Everyone at the lab was expecting Dr. Brennan to be really upset that she didn't win the grant herself, and then she reveals that she submitted Angela for the award, and she's extremely happy that Angela won. So that was really nice to see. Just like everyone thought that she was going to be really jealous and really upset that she didn't win, and then she's like, no, I'm the one that submitted her name for the award. It was me all along. And then in the final 2 episodes of this season, it's revealed that Angela is pregnant with their second child, which they guess is going to be a second boy, even though it's too early to tell. Angela and her husband agree that no matter what happens regarding their child's sight, because again, they still have a 25% chance of having a child with a blindness, they just agree that they're prepared to deal with anything that comes up as a family. So Angela is very much like a core element of the team. She maintains a real air of comedy and optimism in a potentially grim workplace. She's a fully capable professional in her workplace, even though she has like not the same level of schooling as everyone else. And she's the only person who can work the Angelatron. Like the Angelatron does not work without her. She tried to instruct one of the interns to use the Angelatron when she was in labor with her first child, and like he just couldn't do it.
Wow.
Yeah, he really tried, and he was going to school to get his PhD, and he couldn't figure it out. So her strength of character is like a comfort to everyone in the office, with the possible exception of Brennan. No one ever questions Angela's credentials in the lab, even though they do sometimes question her individual reconstructions when they don't like the facts that they're being faced with. But like she's never really wrong. Like she's always right when she takes the measurements that they give her and she draws a face. Like that's how the face looks.
Right.
So each of the women in the lab are, like, integral to the function of the team as a whole. There's a few other women on the show that I wish I had more time to talk about. Mostly Caroline Julian, who's the assistant U.S. attorney. And then Daisy Wick and Jessica Warren are 2 of Dr. B's squinterns. And there's a couple of others. But I think this show really emphasizes that their little, like, crime-solving unit is a family, and the women never tear each other down. Even when they have, like, personal disagreements or, like, professional disagreements, they really respect one another's credentials as colleagues and who one another are as people and as friends. And then, like, fun fact, all three of those women that get married over the course of the show and become parents, as I mentioned, and you might have caught this if you were listening, that all three of them proposed to their respective partners, which is really fun.
Yes, that's amazing too.
I just thought, like, I'm a big fan of that. I think it's just a fun thing to do.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I love that.
And yeah, I mean, it's an amazing show. I highly recommend. It's 12 seasons, but, you know, if you like crime procedurals, it's super fun.
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah. Like, CSI is really similar to, like, just the way you're talking about it as far as, like, the show goes is similar, but it doesn't have nearly the same amount of women as there is men. So I really like the way that it sounds like there's, like, a lot of women, a lot of female representation.
Yeah, it's really nice to see women.
Female power. Yeah, love it.
Especially because women are so discouraged as, like, young people to, like, not go into science that, like, it's nice to see that these three women, like,
for sure,
have ended up in this, like, scientific field. And, like, they're all at the top of their fields.
Exactly, and they don't fall into the stereotype of, well, a woman gets pregnant and then she stops working. She just becomes
they're all working parents. It's really nice.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. Let's move on to our segments of the week. We'll start off with Love It or Lose It, where depending on what we're talking about, we pick something that we love and something that we don't love as much. I guess I can start us off with my love it for the week is just how badass Nairobi is, her speeches, and how freely she chooses love, fun, and freedom because she knows its value. And then my lose it is what happens to Nairobi in the latest season. No spoilers because you have to watch it. It's absolutely mandatory, but she doesn't deserve what happens in the latest season, and I'm angry about it. Who wants to go next?
I'll go second. One thing I loved this week is how much effort Angela and Cam put into orchestrating Dr. Brennan's relationship with her partner Booth, only for Booth and Brennan to just turn around and have a one-night stand and conceive a child right off the bat, which eventually led to a long-term relationship and marriage.
I got into bed with Booth last night. Why aren't you saying anything? Because I don't want to yell hallelujah. It's so close to losing Vincent.
And then I don't have a lose it this week. I love this show and all three of the women that I talked about.
Love.
There isn't a lose it.
Love. I know some weeks we might not have a love it some weeks, we might not have a lose it some weeks.
Yeah. So for my love it, it's how smart Alex is and how sometimes they go a couple weeks without implementing that, she is a doctor and, like, has a PhD, and then they bring in, like, some kind of, like, smart, like, project that they have to do, and she's like, yeah, I understand this. And they're like, oh, yeah. She's awesome like that, too. My lose it is Alex forgetting about her sister being a superhero and that whole storyline because it was so sad and my heart hurt.
That's fair.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So next up we have randomized rankings, which we are skipping just for this week because obviously our own women that we discussed are going to be number one, of course.
Yeah. Plus, it's hard to talk about 5 characters when we only talked about 5 characters in the whole episode.
Exactly. So last for our segments is I Would Name My Kid, which is when we pick names from our episode and declare them as potential baby names that we would like. I just want to start us off saying that I would name my kid Nairobi because she's so legendary and she's one of my favorite all-time characters in anything ever. I think Nairobi is a really cool name.
That is a really cool name.
Honestly, like, since all of the robbers have city names, all their names are really cool and they end up really fitting the characters. I love all the names. But Nairobi is cool. Great. Yeah, it's really cool.
Moira, do you want to go next?
I like the name Camille better than, like, Alex, which
I also like the name Camille.
Yeah, that's a really nice name.
Yeah, I love like unique names more than like common ones, so I'm like, ooh, Camille.
Yeah.
It's just
you know who
pretty.
doesn't like the name Camille? Cam. Booth and Cam used to date at a timeline previous to the show. And so she is one of the few people that calls him Seely. And he always says, don't call me Seely. And she always says, don't call me Camille. But he always calls her Camille anyway.
Oh,
I love it.
It's a running joke for them. A lot of the characters go by their last names on Bones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't blame them.
Okay.
So for I would name my kid, it wasn't on my list this week, Pookie Noodlin.
Yeah.
Never,
most
ever.
definitely.
No.
Oh, God, what a terrible childhood. Children are so awful. I can't even imagine.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to go to school, especially having like a famous dad. I hope she got homeschooled.
Oh, gosh.
A lot.
Can you
It doesn't sound
imagine,
like she did, but oh my God, I can't imagine.
Can you imagine a supply teacher comes in and they're reading off the name list and they get to your name and they just like freeze? Like, is that real?
Pookie Noodlin is her first name.
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't even. No, I love the name Michael Vincent. Like, if I have a son
me
someday,
too.
Michael Vincent's
Cute,
definitely going to be on the top of my list. And, like, as a bonus, it's not too weird. Like, it wouldn't be, like, a really embarrassing, like, obviously, like, a referencey name, except for the fact that I'm on a podcast right now saying that I would name my kid after Michael Vincent. But it's really cute. I'm a big fan.
It reminds me of, like a Michelangelo, like an artisty name. I really like it. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it was really cute. Because, like, Hodgins wanted Michael John, I think, or something like that, and Angela's father wanted Staccato Mamba, and then one of the Squinterns, Vincent Nigel Murray, died like right before they had their child, so it was really nice that they combined all three of them into one name. Michael Staccato Vincent.
I love that so much, and Staccato is a cool middle name too.
Yeah,
for sure.
I really like it.
Awesome
Maybe not
middle
first name, but
yeah, not a good first name. Staccato Mamba is a real name.
Yeah.
But I think they came to a good compromise.
Yeah, I love that.
And then for a girl, they wanted Catherine Temperance after like Dr. Brennan. Even though Angela hates the name Temperance, she still wanted to name her kid after her friend, which is really cute.
That's really nice.
She's like, Temperance is awful, so we're not making it the first name, but we'll make it the middle name.
That's a nice middle name.
Okay, so that wraps up this episode. You've been listening to the Series of Opinions podcast. Let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Leave us a review. It really does help. We want to know what you think. And please feel free to gush with us about your favorite strong ladies, fictional or otherwise. Our email is seriesofopinionspod@gmail.com. We are Series of Opinions Pod on Tumblr and Instagram, and Series of Opinion with no S at the end on Twitter. You can find me at Miss Faith Ann and at Faith Ann Art across everything. The art one is for all my art things. Moira, where can they find you?
You can find me at Moira_Frisk on everything.
You can find me at Life Messes of KJ, all one word, across everything. And if you also love Bones as much as I love Bones, I will definitely tweet back to you.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so thanks so much again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
This episode was edited by me. Our logo is by Faith Ebert. This episode was written, produced, and recorded by us. Bye!
Bye!